Go. Oh, all right, the sun is here. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the Ali Brothers podcast. And welcome to Miami. More like my ummy's back garden. Yeah. You know, because like, we're not actually in Miami.
No.
But we're in our mother's back garden.
So my ummi being Urdu for mum,
Yes.
back garden being back garden.
Yeah.
It's very nice
And it's
today.
sunny outside.
Although there is a grey cloud slowly making its way above us.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
typical Irish weather.
But I think we started at the right time.
yeah,
so
hopefully we're going to make the most of the sun while it's
it'll
still
be
out.
fine. Yeah.
For the 2 minutes that it'll be out.
That's the spirit. All right. So what do we want to talk about today? I wanted to talk about the history of the Ali Brothers podcast and YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So actually, you gave the idea. So tell us where the idea was motivated.
I think
Wasn't a joke.
actually we started having this conversation a few years ago. I think it was a few years ago because last year, probably a year from now,
Yeah.
it was about a year from now, I think, we started seriously talking about it. Like we started taking steps in order to make this happen,
Right.
right? But it was I think it was a year before that, where basically what was happening, we were having a lot of discussions on the phone.
Yeah.
Like we were having a lot of discussions, and
Yeah.
it was like, it wasn't just religion, it was politics, it was current affairs,
Current
all
affairs,
sorts of
yeah.
things, and
Yeah.
basically it was just complaining to each other about what was going on in the world, right? And we obviously weren't very happy about what was going on. I mean, we live in Ireland, we live in the West, so there's a lot of recent developments that we're not too happy about. But yeah, we were talking a lot about that, and our conversations, it was a lot to do with psychology, philosophy, you know, current affairs, like I mentioned.
Culture.
So culture, a lot to
Yeah.
do with culture, yeah.
Yeah.
And we thought it was quite interesting
Yeah.
what we were talking about, and
Yeah.
I think if you looked at our exact opinions, we realised that it wasn't really represented online,
No,
like not at all, and
not completely, and not with all the nuances and
the balance.
like some of it was there, some of it wasn't there, and the Irish experience is different.
Definitely not. Yeah, the Irish experience in particular is not one that's talked about, especially the Irish Muslim experience. We don't have much of a Muslim population here in Ireland,
Yeah.
anyway.
And in a sense, that's different. I mean, it's similar to other places where you have significant Muslim minority groups, in the sense that it's not like in the UK and the US, for example, where yes, Muslims are minorities, but you have big populations.
Yeah, and we found that a lot of the, let's say, the issues relating to Muslims in Ireland were very different to an America or the UK. But also, because the population is not that big, we were, like you like to say, we were importing a lot of these issues from the UK, our closest neighbour.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of a strange, it still is a strange time when it comes to politics and religion, and where exactly is our position as Muslims in the West, not just in the West, and in Ireland in
In a place
particular.
like Ireland in particular. Yeah.
So we thought that, of course, Ireland isn't getting much representation, Muslim representation.
Not much in
Online.
general, but obviously not.
Yeah,
much.
not much representation online in general, but definitely not Muslim representation. There's not many notable Muslim personalities from Ireland. So we thought, especially the kind of experience, we have a very, very unique experience, and sharing that, I think definitely a lot of Irish people would be able to benefit from that. But we just thought it was really interesting if you share that for people from, frankly, all around the world, because the Irish experience in general is unique, and it's quite different to a lot of the other Western countries. So,
Was the
yeah.
idea ever brought up to you from someone else about making a YouTube channel?
I think it was mentioned to me a few times, and it was with people who I was discussing basically a lot of the same things that I was discussing with yourself, whether it was politics or religion. Misunderstandings about religion was a big one, because I found myself constantly having to explain or debunk a lot of misunderstandings that people have, especially in Europe when it comes to Muslims. And yeah, so that kind of, it came up first, and it's clear that we have experience and we have knowledge on Islam as well, and formally as well, we're gaining knowledge. It's not just kind of knowledge from experience or a casual knowledge, let's say, that people have just by living, living the Muslim experience, I'd say,
Yeah.
or from culture, or the you know,
or from like actually studying it in a non-systematic way, as a lot of people do. Okay, they listen to your lecture series and things, but
so we do have formal knowledge, and we are gaining formal knowledge in that, and that's why, you know, I think. Also, another thing was we were doing a lot in our own community as well. We were having lectures and regular kind of gatherings, and people were really interested in that.
Yeah,
and we would get a lot of positive comments and encouragement from the community, and we thought, okay, if the community is gaining benefit from this, why not? You know, I'm sure other people will. And also, it was an interesting way to incorporate our own experiences and our ideas about that, because, like I said, our exact ideas, our particular ideas, weren't really represented online. The kind of balance was definitely not there. Balance is, we say all the time, balance and nuances. It seems to be dead in the modern world. So it's something we thought that we can definitely add value. If we start having these conversations. So
welcome back to Miami.
Yeah, it's really nice in the sun, isn't it?
Yeah, Ireland is beautiful when the sun is out.
Ireland is best during the summer. It really is lovely.
So in terms of then like the kind of content that we want to put out, obviously one area is the kind of Dawah kind of material, or more religious kind of material that's focused on religious kind of issues. But obviously we're not restricting it just to that.
No.
We want to talk a lot about culture, especially the Pakistani background that we have. We have a lot to say about Pakistani culture, how it relates to Irish culture, the Pakistani Western kind of experience, and our experience with that, how we kind of deal with it and navigate that. And this question that I love to ask is, like, is culture really, in a sense, kind of like the poison that there is, that like, everything about culture is negative? Or can you take some aspects of culture that can be negative, leave the negative and focus on some things that are positive? And then the question comes between the tension between religion and culture, and to what extent can you focus on culture when it's not specifically mentioned in religion, and how do you navigate that? So obviously we're not focusing on just the Dawah kind of ecosystem, but even within that, that's what we were talking about. That like there's loads of material now, and you have brilliant YouTubers now. For example, the likes of Mohammed Hijab, and you have other well-known YouTubers on the Dawah scene. Someone like Mohammed Hijab in particular, he has the credentials
100%,
that are undisputable. And he recently updated his biography. I'm not sure if you know this, but he has all the degrees that he has, all the teachers that he studied under, all the courses that he did, which, due to unfortunate reasons, he had to be really explicit with that. And the thing with that is, the reason that we respect him so much is because of his credentials. Now, you can disagree with him, and we do disagree in terms of the way that you
perhaps the method of communication.
And other people who have credentials, and other scholars. The one thing that we focus on him is that he has credentials. Other people, they don't really have those kind of credentials, and they talk more in general kind of, and it's not really grounded as much in text and those kind of sources. But even notwithstanding that fact, you can disagree with someone in terms of their approach, in terms of the things that they focus on,
and still appreciate
what they do. Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, well, one of the things I wanted to highlight about Mohammed Hijab in particular is that while we may disagree with some of the methods with which he communicates his beliefs and his knowledge, I have to say that kind of a personality is so important. The existence of that kind of a personality is so important because it shows that it highlights you can have different personalities, and you can still be legitimate, and you can still be knowledgeable, and you can still hold your own. And that was one of the things that he gets criticized a lot for, his method of communication, but it's and although it's become, he understands it's become part of entertainment and everything, but the reason why it works, or first of all, it's so important that we have those kind of personalities, so it's highlighted to everyone that when it comes to people of religious knowledge, you can have different personalities. You can convey it differently, and there's a use. They're all extremely useful. They all have a place. And when I started, it was a few years ago when I started seeing his stuff, let's just say I wasn't as concentrated on religion.
It was more so the entertainment kind of.
Yeah, so I was attracted to his channel and his videos because of the entertainment
and
aspect
the personality.
And the personality, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's an entertaining personality, and that's how I was attracted, and that was one of the channels with which I was attracted to the kind of religion again, and so I have him to thank for that, and it was really important. If he would just end up kind of what we stereotypically think as the Islamic personality or the personality
or
of
the scholar or
the scholar,
the Maulvi Saab.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of just you're
restricted in this.
You're restricted. You have to be overly serious all the time. There's no joke and there's none of that. It's just about what's in the books. It's you're not kind of applying real life, and you're not having fun with it really. So his kind of personality was so important. I know he gets a lot of criticism, some fair, some unfair. But I'm really happy that he exists because it really attracts me. Like that's the thing, when you have different kind of personalities representing something, you're going to attract more people to it. And it was just really cool to see someone like that who was having fun with it. You know, having fun with the knowledge, and he's conveying it in this really entertaining way, and it's different to everyone else. And also, that kind of a personality is going to attract people, like I said, for the entertainment purpose. So maybe Muslims watch him for knowledge, but maybe non-Muslims or just kind of any person on YouTube would come across and be like, oh, this guy's really funny. This guy's really entertaining, and they might get some real value from that, not just the entertainment. They might get some perspective which they didn't have before. And like you said, he definitely has the credentials. He has the ability. He's so good at debates. He has the knowledge, and that's really good. That actually, for me personally, that motivated me to kind of push us into something like this, because originally when I was younger, I thought the same, like, oh, if you talk about something religious, it all has to be serious all the time. It's kind of boring and it's just dry. That's not really it. I realized, it's allowed to incorporate your own personality and your own sense of humor into things, and you're not going to be I mean, you might be ridiculed for it, but it's fine.
It's acceptable. You are allowed to do that. The other thing about hijab is he mentions himself in the podcast that he does recently, especially the ones with he did one with Jordan Peterson. He did two so far with Jordan Peterson, and he did one with True Geordie. And he makes it clear that when he's asked about, what is questions along the lines of what is the Islamic personality, or do you embody Islam? He's like, I have a particular personality. And not everyone is going to be the same. Like people are going to have different personalities. So if you look at me and you're like, this is what Islam is. No, this is how I practice Islam. I have a particular personality.
This can be what Islam is,
But it's not like you have to be like that. And people who might be put off by his personality, they're like, he answers that question and says that, like, yes, other people can have different personalities, and they can approach the religion not in terms of the sources, like you have the sources, but you can bring it across in a different way.
You can practice slightly differently, and it's all acceptable.
As long as
you come to the culture topic,
as long as especially when it comes to religion, as long as it's based on evidence. And there is within the religion, there is intrinsically that amount of leeway when it comes to, less so when it comes to the belief system, but more so when it comes to the way that you practice.
There's quite a lot when it comes to practice.
But again, like we're saying, it has to be based within evidences. The other thing about hijab that we really respect is the fact that he is open to discussion with anyone. And he mentions this. He mentions this a lot. That if I was given the opportunity, and he had a very, very interesting podcast with. Our interview with Daniel Hakikachu. And again, some people are going to be hearing these names. The reason that we're mentioning these names is because these are people that we related to. These are people who are in the Dawah ecosystem. And whether you like it or not, like young people and people are listening to these people. So we're bringing a perspective on how we kind of found those conversations and how, as Hijab is saying himself, yes, you can agree with some of my stances, you can disagree, like it's okay. But he mentions in that podcast, he says that, I think it's in that podcast, but he mentions this clearly, that I would be open for a conversation with what people would consider the worst of people, like the biggest hedonist. I would be, I would openly have a conversation with them. And it doesn't mean that I completely agree with them. It means that I am open to discussion. I can have a conversation with them. And that's something that we focus on quite a bit. And we mentioned that in the podcast we had with Brother Shabir Hasan.
Yeah.
That you should be able to talk to people, especially when you're in that position, when you're in perhaps a leadership position or people are asking you questions. And the other thing about representation is, like, whether you like it or not, if your name is Muhammad or Ahmed or Fatima,
or you look a certain way,
you're like, there's a huge burden of representation placed on you that, like, it's there whether it's placed on you willingly or otherwise.
It's there whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to consider that. So being able to have those conversations, like he had with someone like Jordan Peterson, Dr. Jordan Peterson, and and True Geordie, for example.
The True Geordie one, I have to say, is amazing.
And someone who is not to be named,
right?
For example, but it's important as Muslims that we are able to have a conversation about people, not about people, but about things.
Especially with people of differing opinions.
And also when it comes to, like, people asking us questions about the religion, even in an attacking way. That we are able to, that we're not insecure, that, like, you know, like, you should be secure enough in your religion, in your belief system. That, and that's the other thing about the religion, that, like, if someone mocks aspects of their religion, it doesn't mean that has been mocked, or the religion has been destroyed or finished.
It's kind of up to you to go after that person in order to defend the honor of the Prophet or God. In
an ultimate kind of way. Of course, like, if someone mocks the religion or mocks the Prophet, if you're in a position that you can, like, perhaps this is going into a territory that isn't the case most of the time, but if they're aggressive, like, it makes sense to put them in their place.
There's a time and a place.
Perhaps nicely, or perhaps with, like, with some firmness, intellectual firmness.
Not physical, just to be clear.
Yes. Please.
But another thing I wanted to highlight with Mohammed Hijab is that you can actually, if you watch his older videos,
you can see the difference.
You can see the journey. And it's really beautiful to see. He's matured so much. He's gotten so much better at really not only just expressing himself, but differentiating, like you said, that, look, this is my personality. This is how it is. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's what Islam is.
When he started being clear about that, and that was a huge thing, because people, especially the young zealous Muslims, we were like, especially when you look at the debates in, for example, Speaker's Corner. That's what a lot of people say in a place like Ireland. That's what a lot of people think. This is what the religion is. This is how you talk to people about interfaith issues. This is how you defend the religion. And, like, people who are in those positions, people who do debate and do discussions in those kind of areas, in Speaker's Corner, for example, where a lot of the time it perhaps is controversial. I haven't been there myself. We haven't been there. And also the way that we're praising hijab's progression, it's huge coming from us. It's about, yes, you can be a certain way and you can make mistakes personally and you can have a different approach. That's all okay. But what I'm talking about, the Speaker's Corner kind of methodology, that isn't the way that you interact with people normally.
Also, that's appropriate for that place.
It is appropriate for that
because
place,
I mean, that's literally how it's set up. It's meant to be that kind of entertaining debate. You're almost going after each other. You know, there's a lot of putting each other down. That's appropriate there, but that's not appropriate for most daily life, and also for most people I've found, they're just curious. And if they you have to encourage people to ask questions about it. They have to be open. They can't think that I can't ask questions about whether it's religion or whatever, or someone's culture, because I might sound racist or I might sound offensive. Like, how are we going to educate people and promote unity if people don't know what the culture is or what the religion actually is? And most people don't. Most people have no idea. They're basing it off of, unfortunately, a lot of misrepresentation in the media, or kind of this kind of more, whether it's debates or conversations that have more of an entertainment quality rather than an educational quality. So yeah, it's very important to kind of understand the time and place and go about it that way. We were talking about it in our last podcast, how there's a time and place to be firm about it and strict about things, let's say, and there's a time to be a lot softer.
Yeah, even if it's with the same person in the same setting.
Exactly.
The time makes a huge difference.
Massively. You have to understand the context of the situation.
Yeah.
When it's kind of when it's appropriate to put the other person down, let's say, versus when it's more appropriate to listen to the other person, even if they're being a little abusive, frankly, because you don't know their experience, you don't know what the kind of their, because people have a lot of different experiences, and a lot of people unfortunately have had terrible experiences with Muslims in particular. So I think us especially, we understand that, we're quite empathetic to that viewpoint. So we go about it a certain way. But there's also times where, you know, people are just, you know, they need to be put down. They need to be put in their place.
And then in real life as well, it's not like you have to engage with every argument.
Yeah, also most of the time it's just better to walk away, I would say. Like if some random person is going to shouting abuse at you in the street, it's not the time and place for a debate.
Yeah,
exactly. You know what I mean? It's better just to walk away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But also when, for example, your colleague is asking questions, your professor is asking questions, for example, the way that even if it's how do you say, even if the questioning is pointed or somewhat abusive, like you want to,
or offence could easily be taken.
Offence can be taken. Yeah, fair enough. So the way I said that was okay.
Yeah, shut up.
Yeah,
I'm talking.
Yeah, but if it's done in a way that can be that offence can be taken, like you said, correctly.
Thank you.
There's a reason where it makes sense in that kind of situation that you don't engage every time, like you're questioned about that, because look, just mind your own business, bro. Like like I'm not pushing you in any way. Like just take it easy.
That's the thing. You need to
pick your battles.
You need to pick. That's it. You need to pick your battles, and that people. He mentioned this point earlier that especially Muslims, they think if someone's being even directly abusive towards their religion or towards themselves or towards their beliefs, that if they don't say something or if they don't
the religion is finished.
Yeah, the religion is done, or the Prophet has been humiliated, or God has been humiliated, and it's up to you as a human being to defend the religion in that. Where that's just not the case. Someone kind of abusing your beliefs, ultimately we believe that it doesn't really affect God or the Prophet, sleep on him, or our beliefs. This is people shouting abuse, whatever. So you have to. You just have to understand the exact situation. It's not on you to kind of, let's say, it's definitely not on you to get violent about it. That should never be the case.
No, of course.
That should never ever be the case. We live in such a time where we should be having conversations, debates, definitely. But like if it's ever getting anything, like, I know what I particularly don't like is that when it comes to debate, it shouldn't, and it most often these days, I don't understand why, especially I don't understand from people who are educated and have credentials and have the ability.
Anything to worry about.
Why do these debates degenerate into name calling and just getting personal? It has nothing to do with the overall point. The whole point of debates were, at least, they used to be, let's find out what the truth is, or let's get a little closer to the truth. This might be a difficult conversation, but it has nothing to do with the person. And I shouldn't be coming at you personally. You're this or that. If I don't agree with your viewpoint, it should be, I should be debating your viewpoint, and the goal should be a shared goal as to we're both trying to push towards what the objective truth is.
Yeah, and when it comes to debates, for example, and when it comes to debates, there can be a number of reasons why you engage in debate, and we say this in on a situation where you have a stage and you're in front of people and it's being recorded, for example, which isn't the case most of the time. But there's a number of reasons why that might be the case. Number one, it might be, yes, to convince the audience, to convince the other side of the more correct position. Most of the time it isn't. You have to consider that. Most of the time it isn't. Also, another reason would be that a question has gained so much momentum, there's so much heat behind a question that if it degenerates into name calling, there's a reason behind that. Because in that particular society, in that particular context, there is a lot of history, there's a lot of context,
emotion
that is associated with that, and it might be appropriate for that. Certain debates in the Islamic sphere, I'm not going to mention anything in particular, but they make sense for that particular reason. It's if it's the personality who doesn't have credentials, if it's like the person doesn't have anything to offer, then what are you doing here? There's a reason for that. But if someone, say for example in Ireland or even in the UK, in a rural area in the UK or the US, in Europe, employs that kind of a method when it comes to talking to people, talking to his colleagues and classmates, that's not what you're supposed to do. That's not what you're supposed to do. And another reason for these kind of discussions is to create a sense of cohesion and to create open discussion. And this is more common with perhaps some other debates you have seen. They don't degenerate into name calling. It's okay. This is our point. This is your point. I completely disagree with your point. But after I can shake your hand and I can agree to disagree.
But also, it's shocking to me that again, a lot of these people are like educated, I would say, otherwise sophisticated individuals, right? Who, if it degenerates into name calling and if it degenerates into that kind of verbal abuse, do you really think that your abuse towards the other person is going to convince them more of your viewpoint? Like it's just common sense that if you start abusing someone like that, they're going to stay even more firm on their own original point of view, even if they now know that they're completely wrong. Because it's just embarrassing. They're going to do it just for the sake of it. So it doesn't really help. You have more of a chance of convincing someone of your own viewpoint if you're just, frankly, you just stay on the facts about it and you don't get personal, you definitely don't get abusive. Just talk about the facts in an appropriate manner.
Another thing about these kind of debates and discussions and focusing on the intellectual kind of sphere of things is if you focus on that, especially when it comes to non-Muslim colleagues and even Muslim friends, relatives and people in society, and you forget the base what you're supposed to have, and that is the character that you have. That's the personal connection that you have. What's the point of religion if you're not, if you don't have that spirituality, if that's not benefiting you in any way? What's the point of that? So, especially we give this example that if you see someone who's trying to practice their religion and they don't have anything that you would envy in a way, but you don't have anything that you would want for yourself. This guy, he's wearing raggedy clothing. He has a beaten down car.
He's not well groomed.
He's not well groomed. He's just depressed the whole time. Like,
go on.
Why would I want your way of life? Why would I even
100%.
entertain any discussion?
And that's what we say about the viewpoint as well. If it's more about religion and way of life, I suppose. But if you're inviting to your way of life, whether it's to do with religion or let's say politics or whatever it may be, if you believe that that's the best way, then it should be quite evident in just the way you live. Like the way you live should be such an attractive life that people are just attracted to it, and that makes arguing your point a lot easier. Look at me. I'm successful because of this viewpoint. I have really good relationships because of this viewpoint. I'm financially better off because of this, because of these viewpoints. So that like you said, that really helps when it comes to that. If you're, like you said, if you're bitter and you have it's very clear that you're not fulfilled or whatever it may be. It's not. It doesn't help you convincing other people that yes, you should believe in the belief system that I believe in, because you're kind of your embodiment of that belief, which is what you are. You're an embodiment of your belief. Your embodiment of your belief is so depressing and so terrible, so unattractive that well, nobody's going to be attracted to that. It's very much like if I always give the example of fitness coaches, right, or trainers in the gym. If your trainer doesn't look fit, are you going to want him or her to train you? No, you're not.
Yeah.
Or if you know, someone who's overweight and just let's say lazy and they're just not fit in any way, mentally or physically, who are you going to pick as a trainer more likely? And let's say he's arguing that, oh, you should live my lifestyle. If he's not living the lifestyle he's living, you're not going to want to live that lifestyle because he's not embodying the positive values of that. So yeah, that's very important, that everyone should ask themselves, like, why do I believe that this adds quality? And does it add quality? Like, is it making me healthier? Is it making my relationships better? What is it like with my finances? Things like that are very, that's you know, that's so important. So if it does add value and fulfillment to your life, then people automatically are going to be attracted to that. So that's the first thing we should kind of look internally, look at our lives. First of all, am I even living? That's one thing. Am I even living the life that I'm preaching? Right? Because that's another thing, that the life that you're preaching might be good. Like, you might be preaching to everyone, you know, get fit, eat good food, and study hard. But if you're not doing all of those things, then, well, you're not representing the life that you're preaching to everyone else. And I mean, that doesn't help in the overall debate that people should be living that life, because you're not representing it very well, first of all. So that's the first thing people should do.
But then the question comes that, like, if I'm not doing that perfectly, should I just keep it to myself?
Yeah, that's really interesting. If not, now the conversation changes dramatically, I would say, when it comes to what I'm talking about. Let's say it's more about something like fitness. Even if you're doing that kind of imperfectly, you get it 80% right. You're doing really well. You know, you're already standing out. You know, you already look different. You already look healthier. You already feel healthier. People can see the effect, right? Even if you're getting about 80%. Now, when it comes to something like religion, it gets really complicated. Because there can be aspects that you can be following properly, and there could be other aspects that maybe it's you're not doing a great job, or because you're human, we always say we believe that Islam is perfect, but as humans, obviously we're going to practice it imperfectly. And this is essentially what God expects of us as well. That's what Islam says. So yeah, when it comes to religion, it gets complicated, because you should make it obvious, like, this is the belief system, this is what that is. I'm not very good at practicing this particular part of it, but whenever I get better at that, I feel that my quality of life has gone up, and show evidence of that. Now, you know, on social media, just in your life, you should be showing that, like, this is how I felt. Maybe you will feel better as well. Another thing people should, when they're talking about what has added value to their life, I think it's very important to say to the people, especially if you're online, it's important that this has added value to my life. Maybe it'll add value to your life too, rather than kind of preaching to everyone, you know, and saying, no, this is the only way, or this exact way is the only way, because your exact circumstances are going to be different. Our exact circumstances are very different to someone in a village in Pakistan. Right, very, very different, and we've seen that with our own eyes. So us kind of saying that and expecting someone to, let's say, practice religion exactly the same is frankly quite arrogant. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, when it comes to the fundamentals of the religion and the obligations, of course you fulfill them. But even within those, there are aspects that you personally might find more difficult. Whether that's fasting in Ramadan, you particularly find that difficult.
Thanks for highlighting that every chance you get.
It's just the facts. Like, I don't think you should get emotional by the facts. When it comes to praying, some people might find
Is this also going to degenerate into name calling, or?
I mean, it doesn't have to. Like, it depends on. We'll see how it goes. But yeah,
We'll have to have a lecture after this on the respective elders. But
some people might find it the very difficult, for example. And sometimes, I'll tell you what, yeah?
Tell me.
Sometimes the same action might be much easier at a certain time for you.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say that. Compared to you in a different situation.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're at home, for example, and you're chilling, okay, it's easy to perform the prayers. But if you find yourself, if you're, say, a medical student, for example, and you're praying in between lectures and clinics, and you don't have much time, and you're just finding a few minutes, and you pray wherever you can. It's a different situation. Even though it's the same person, you have the same kind of interest, you have the same, what do you call it, ability to do things. But because of the situation, it makes things different in that situation. But also then when it comes to excelling in the religion, now I can bring up a hadith here in which the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah said. So this is what is known as a hadith Qudsi from the Islamic paradigm. So it's that the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet Muhammad, he said that God said something. But it's not a verse of the Quran. So it's called a hadith Qudsi, a sacred saying, a sacred hadith. So he says that من عاد لي وليا فقد آذنته بالحرب. That whoever shows enmity towards a friend of mine, then I have declared war against him. Now the question comes, who is the friend of God? Who is the wali of Allah? A lot of us, we've heard this term, such and such is a wali Allah. He is a friend of Allah. And you consider people in the past, people who have devoted their lives to the religion in terms of scholarship, in terms of focusing on worship. But consider for a second that God is talking about you in this example. And I'll explain how perhaps he is in this situation. He says that I have declared war against him, against a person who has showed enmity, who is disturbing you, who is causing difficulty to you. He says that my servant, my slave, doesn't come close to me with anything more beloved to me than those things that I've made obligatory upon him. So that's how you get close to God, by performing those obligations. A lot of the time,
the basic obligations.
Like that's the basics of the religion. And a lot of the time, we don't really consider that we get rewarded for those obligations. We think
we don't value it as much as we should, really.
We think that, okay, we're done the obligations. Now let me focus on fasting extra days. Now let me focus on extra prayers.
The stuff that'll really get me closer.
Yeah, this is what, like, now I'm on the journey. No. How you start the journey is by fulfilling the obligations. Haseeb.
Yeah.
How you start the journey is by fulfilling the obligations.
Yeah.
And then we go on to, and my servant, my slave, he continues to draw closer to me by performing that which is optional. So that's how you continue down the journey. But the base is the obligations. Always. So that's what we're talking about. You fulfill the obligations, and they have been made obligatory for a reason. And then the question comes. Well, I suppose the question is, and
I don't know if anybody's noticed thus far, but we're big JP fans, big Jordan Peterson fans. So, Hasan is slowly turning into. You've always had kind of mannerisms like him, but now you're just as you watch more of his content, you're slowly just morphing into this brown Jordan Peterson, brown Muslim Jordan Peterson. Oh yeah, sorry, we can't say that, right?
What was I saying? Yeah. So that's the obligations. That you can find some of those things more difficult. But then when it comes to the optional acts, if you say that, oh yeah, like fasting on Mondays and Thursdays, which is fantastic, it's the sunnah, not to take away from that, but that's the way that you get close. That like, oh yeah, that's the path. But then someone that's not feasible for them, or they don't have that interest. For example, for you it would be. We're talking about facts here. Like for you, it would be. That would not be my interest. Different. No. For me, I'm more inclined to fasting, so I'm so much better than you.
No, but that's the real in that regard.
You perhaps, I don't know,
perhaps,
but you have something that your path to the friendship of God is perhaps a different way.
Yeah, but also what's important there, if something is easier, like if fasting is easier for yourself. You do it, obviously you're going to get a certain reward, right? You're going to get it, that's great. But if it's if it's really hard for me, with less of the same action, I'm going to get more.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's what I was.
It's JP, and then I don't know what accent it is. Like
it's some Irish situation.
Just randomly comes out.
It's a brown Irish JP. It's a brown Irish Jordan Peterson is what it is.
Yeah. All right.
It's anyway, that's hilarious. Basically, my point is that if obviously something is more difficult for a person, they're going to be rewarded for that action versus for a person who for whom it's easier.
I think so.
English words.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that was a full stop. I thought you were going to say something.
Yes, a full stop.
To perform. Yeah. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Yeah, just briefly and this will, hopefully I can finish this sentence. Just to briefly mention one last point that will connect this point to the next point.
Okay.
Will bring us back to hopefully the title of this video. That is, we mentioned this briefly on the Shabir Hasan podcast, that the Sahaba, for example, they had different personalities, they had different interests, and they pursued those in different ways. And like we're talking about, like something might be easier for you, something might be easier for me, and it's not the case for other people. That you pursue that which is natural for you after performing the obligations. Yeah.
Also, like as doing your best to stay within the boundaries of the religion.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's but we do.
Okay, go on.
We need to find different ways to mention this person without naming him. But an interesting individual once said that it's impressive. Let's focus on the statement I'm going to say.
Yeah.
It's impressive how people, and it's hilarious the way he said it. It's impressive how people with different personalities, different backgrounds, different life experiences, they went to different schools, are born in different places, different parents, they all end up being the same as each other.
Yeah, pretty much exactly
the same. We have
doing the same things.
The same things.
Yeah.
That's hilarious the way you said it. And I was like, that's so much more so when it comes to practicing the religion, because we think, well, we follow a particular scholar and we're like, this is Islam.
Not only that, but we attach our eternal success to having a very specific kind of personality. So we really lose the kind of the uniqueness with which we're born. And that's so depressing.
Yeah, that's depressing. And also, like, that's not functional for society.
No, it doesn't work. Also, this is kind of, we're extrapolating this out kind of to outside religion, but just generally, since we're born with different talents, different strengths, different weaknesses. If we do our best to, let's say, to lean into what
and enhance those.
What our talents are, what our gifts are, then also it's not just good for us, it's good for all of society, because we're pursuing what we're good at, what we're better at than a lot of other people. So if you start doing that, overall you serve society and yourself better. If I start doing that, it's going to be some things that are different.
Exactly.
And overall, if we pursue those things, we cover basically everything. Some people are going to be like physically stronger. Some people are going to be mentally stronger. Some people are more kind of, whether you have an ability in maths, engineering, or medicine.
Exactly.
So if we go after what we've been given naturally, and also our interests that we develop over our lives, if we actually pursue those, then not only does it serve us, but that's actually what's better for humanity overall.
Exactly. And to mention one example, people have different interests, people have different ways that they can excel and be more advantageous for society. We'll mention one example of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. He was the most prolific narrator of hadith. So he spent 3 years, if I'm not mistaken, with the Prophet ﷺ before he passed away, before the Prophet ﷺ passed away. And all he did was just spend as much time as he could. He lived in the mosque, and he would spend as much time as he could with the Prophet ﷺ, and he would study everything that he could from him. And he wasn't a person during those 3 years who would perform the night prayer, the tahajjud prayer often, because he's engaged in that. He needs that rest. That like, if this person did that, for example, he's going to be compromised in the talent that he has or the purpose that he can fulfill easily, compared to someone who perhaps isn't able to be with the Prophet ﷺ that much, he has other obligations, he has other requirements, then perhaps for them it's better to, for example, fast or to perform the night prayer or to focus more on that area.
Yeah.
So that's just one example. We can mention so many other examples. When it comes to money, we love talking about money.
Love money.
You have of the 10 people who are promised paradise, and this comes in a particular statement of the Prophet ﷺ. He mentions a list of 10 people. Of them, a number of them were quite rich. They were quite well off. One of the more obvious examples is Uthman radiallahu anh, who was the third caliph. And he supported the religion so much because of the money that he had. And that was his role. That was
his
the way
strength. That's what he was given.
Other people didn't have. So he stood up to that. And he benefited himself.
Exactly. Him going about the religion the same way that a person who would be less well off would not be the right path for him. Exactly. Right?
We didn't need, we'll say it like this, we didn't need someone like Uthman radiallahu anh to focus so much on the pursuit of religious knowledge in terms of collecting those hadith because we had someone like Abu Hurairah. And we didn't need someone who was more connected in terms of being a military general than perhaps some of the more well-known of the Sahaba who were inclined to that area.
Yeah, and I think to bring it back to kind of
the point of the podcast.
Yeah, the point of this particular podcast. The point of back to the title of this video really, is that kind of the reason. The reason we started that is because we realised after quite some time that our path, you can say our path to God as well, right? Our path to God, or kind of our purpose, let's say. It's this is one of the ways we're going to get there. Right, this is that we need to, because we believe we have that value to provide.
I get
in this, you know what I mean? We have that value to provide. We have, we believe, interesting viewpoints, unique viewpoints. We understand balance perhaps more.
I mean, we're bringing a perspective. That's one of the main reasons.
Yeah, it's a perspective.
We're bringing another perspective. We're not saying again this is the way that you do it.
No.
We're bringing another perspective, especially in the Irish kind of context.
Exactly, since there's no representation.
When people in Ireland can connect to, but also people in areas that don't have that kind of
Muslim population. For example.
Yeah,
but that's the point, that it's really we realised that sorry, I heard a bird and it was really nice. I wanted to continue hearing it.
Let me just check if it's focusing on the. So coming back to the point of the podcast, I mean, to be fair, we talked about some of the reasons why we started the podcast. So that's the motivation, and hopefully we succeed in.
Well, that's the goal.
In those reasons.
We're going to
add another voice to the mix. You know what I mean?
And we're going to do things imperfectly. We're going to improve with time, and we're going to mess up. Hopefully not too much. Hopefully not get cancelled too soon. But
based on your trajectory, I'm not too sure about that. But let's focus.
Yeah. Sorry.
Let's focus more on other issues. Yeah. So I think that's it for this podcast, and we will see you in the next one. Any suggestions? Any
topics that you'd like us to talk about, or any questions you have? We'll do our best to answer them, and any topics, especially with regards to religion, or
your experiences. What are you struggling with?
Yeah.
Hopefully
exactly.
we can bring our perspective into that, because perhaps it's something similar that we've been through, and maybe it's a different perspective. So,
exactly.
Yeah, that's it for this one, and we will see you in the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.